Good afternoon, Factotum Life. Today we're in the garage and we're going to start working on our 1986 Yamaha SRV snowmobile. And as you can see here, this is the snowmobile that we're going to be working on. It's been a few years since it has seen trail riding. We have a magneto issue and I need to gain access to it, and I was trying to do it with the engine in, and that's just really not going to work. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take this engine out, we're going to put it on the bench, and I'm going to try to gain some better access to it, and we'll get that magneto off, and we'll see if the gapping isn't right, you know, with the engine being taken apart. It's entirely possible the gapping got screwed up, or if the magneto, if the windings are bad, I don't know. But this is what we're going to work on. We're going to try to get it up and running. I would like to use it not in the trail capacity, but I would like to be able to use it around my property. So that's what our goal is. Alright, so what we're going to try to do here is I'm going to take the hood off, and we have really bent up our tool for removing the clutch. So rather than beat myself trying to get this, we're going to flip the snowmobile on the side and we're going to try the hydraulic method. going to tell you quickly what we're doing here. This is the bolt that holds the clutch in to the engine. So this screws bolts into the crank. We do not want to use this bolt because this will just clamp it down and won't do anything. This bolt is the thread size to remove the clutch, and we had an extension that was going out to the crank. Unfortunately, our extension now is all bent up. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually bolt this in, and we've put water into the system or into the cavity where this bolt would go. And the whole idea is that we're basically using hydraulics to force the clutch out. So we're going to give that a try, and hopefully this will work, as opposed to All right, we're getting to the bottom of the bag here. So I've put grease in. The difficulty is that we have a long length to go, and the grease is sticking everything, and it seems like it's full, but then it's not full. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put some gear oil in and hopefully fill that cavity up. So we have the clutch off now, and I wanted to highlight what exactly is going on because
I actually happened to come across some videos that gave me an idea on this hydraulic thing. And normally, what I was doing initially was this was going into the crank of the engine for the snowmobile. And there's two threads. There's the thread in the crank, and then there's the pulling threads. So I used a bolt for a crank out of an automotive application that I had laying around, and it went in and it pressed against. Now, as you can see, the issue with that was that this started to bend. This wasn't turning, and it wasn't getting it off. It wasn't working. So what I did on my next step was I did water, but the water, I wasn't confident it was working all that well. So what I ended up doing was I went to grease. Grease was good because I could stick the snout all the way in and I could pump it up. It may have, there may have been some residual water in there, but for the most part, it wasn't compressing enough. The grease would come out. I couldn't get enough in there to really get this to compress. So what I ended up finally going with, and really what I should have done from the get-go, if you're going to do the hydraulic method, the gear oil is probably the way to go. I used some aviation sealant about midway, and that was good enough to keep stuff from squirting out the sides of the threads. And then basically just ran it down and it popped out. So that's what I did. If you're going to use this method, you need to make sure that you're not using the crank threads, because you're compressing against nothing. Whereas if you're using the puller threads, you're actually compressing and getting to the point where that clutch will be able to pop off. So two different threads to consider. Crank threads, don't bother, don't use that, but puller threads is what you have to do. So now we can pull the engine out. Hopefully get that off. And then this is oil injected, so what we will have to do is we're going to have to get these oil lines off and reinstall the oil. having a few of these around. Just plug this up. Like that. Oh, there we go. The things we will do for a little bit of fun. So the engine's out. We've got some cleanup to do. How far I take that cleanup, I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to definitely take this opportunity to really go over stuff well. I did notice when the carb was disconnected, there was some string inside of it. So we'll have to take the carburetor out and then suck out the air box, get that all cleaned up. But as you can see, this thing's old. I mean, it's 35 years old this year. I don't know, is it 30 years that would be considered vintage snowmobiles or 40 years? I'm not entirely sure, but I have owned this 21 of those 35 years. So we'll get some work done on it, and thanks for watching.